Exercise number 2, running journal. For the overview of this, you are determined to improve your endurance. So you've decided to log your training in a running journal. And we've got all the running data right here, which we're going to look at. And this journal logs when you ran, how far you ran, and how long it took you. So if we go and look at this, we have the date for every day that you ran, the distance ran in miles because I'm running in America, and the time spent running in minutes. So this is how many minutes you spend running these miles. For question number 1, you need to create 2 line graphs. I know I haven't really touched on graphs. They can be found in the insert, and then you can pick your own little graph that you want here. If you go over to running data, and of course you select the data as if you're selecting a pivot table, you can go and choose your little whatever graph you want. Here's bar, here's, I'm not totally sure what this is, a tree map. Anyway, here's the line graphs, which is what we're interested in this project. And if you go and you can just select your favorite, and it'll auto do it for you. You can right click and do select data, and then you can choose all of the different things you want to select. Anyway, if we escape out of that and go back to reading it, the first graph will be a line graph of your daily distance you run. The second graph will be a line graph of your average speed for those runs. So we have all the information we need for the first graph, but the second graph we don't have the average speed. So that's going to have to be something we calculate before we make the graph. And for question 2, what was your fastest month and what was your slowest month? And if we look at our running data, you'll see that we have all of our times here and all of our distance here by day. So you're going to have to group this by month, which means you're probably going to make another column if you have to. And of course, since we are grouping by and we are aggregating by, since we want the average by month, that means a pivot table. And from that pivot table, we'll be able to determine the fastest and slowest month. So if you're having trouble with this problem and you think you might have a better idea now, go ahead and pause it and try again. Otherwise, I'm going to show you the solution now. Okay, for question 1, it says create 2 line graphs. I'm going to go ahead and put these on a different sheet. So Shift F11, I'll just call this graphs. And this is where I'm going to put my 2 graphs. It says the first graph will be a line graph of the daily distance you've run, which is pretty simple. Go ahead, insert a line graph. Then on this line graph, we want to go ahead and select some data. I'm going to go over to the running data. I'm going to select all of it over here. I'm going to click OK. Then from there, we don't want the time spent running, and we do want the date for all of this horizontal axis. So if we click OK, and there we go. That's how far we've run for each day. Overall, that's a pretty simple one. We can go ahead and we can do it again. Well, we can't quite do it again yet, because the second graph will be a line graph of your average speed, and we don't have average speed yet, so we need to make average speed. Average speed, and the average can be calculated by time over distance. So the average minutes per mile is 8.76 today. We'll go ahead and I'll fill that down. So we'll get the average for all of these ones. Looks like down here, we've got some 7s, whereas up here it looked like 8s and 9s, so we're doing pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and color this blue, and then I'm gonna go ahead and make another graph right here. So insert graph. Let's go ahead and select some data, go over to running data, select all of it. Okay, I'll have to select the data again because all I want is average speed and I want all the dates. And that looks about right. So it looks like we were plateauing about 8 minutes, but we were going a little bit down. We're getting a little bit faster as our distance was going further. So overall, that's pretty good. I would be quite pleased with this progress if this were real data in the slightest. All right, and question 2, what was your fastest month and what was your slowest month? So for this, we need to go ahead and we need to find the month of each of these. March 2021 is a different month than March 2022. Luckily, this doesn't go down to March 2022, but I'm still going to differentiate by it. So I will say equals year of this and hyphen and month. So there we have the year and the month. I know I did not technically teach you the year and the month, but there are a lot of functions in Excel, and I cannot teach you every single one. I could only teach you the ones that I thought were the most important for you to function. This is how you could use the year and the month if you wanted to split up a date like this. So I'm going to go, obviously color this blue because it's a formula. Shift F11 to put it in a new sheet because I'm going to decide to put this on the new sheet. I'm going to call it pivot table. So I'm going to go back to the data and do Alt and V. Although I think you can also do it by going up to, where is it? Insert pivot table. You can click on the pivot table. That'll bring up the same screen. You do it. Well, I guess we'll just do new worksheet. Put it on a new sheet. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. I will just rename this one pivot table. And from there, what do we want? We want the fastest month and the slowest month by average speed. So one way to do this would be to put the average speed as the value and separate it by month. Now it's all off. We gotta change this data. We gotta do this as a text. We've got to use it in this format 0, 0, so that it puts a leading 0 if it's not complete. That way we can order it on the pivot table. Look at that. Another formula you're learning through this exercise, the text. That's a really great function. And if I go ahead and I refresh this, and I can go to data and sort it. There. Now it's being sorted numerically or chronologically. It's being sorted chronologically. And we don't want the sum of the average speed. We want the average. And that's one way to do it. But I don't think that's quite as accurate as the intended solution. If I get rid of average speed, if we get the total distance and the total time, and then we can calculate the average based on total average. I don't like when it says get pivot data. I'm going to go ahead and delete that and just do C4 divided by B4. Then looks like we have a 9-minute average in March of 2021 based on total time divided by total distance. If I go ahead and get that down, and we can see just by looking at that this was the fastest month and this was the slowest month. But if we had, I don't know, hundreds of months because we were running for our entire lifetime, we could go and we could do this as a formula. So I'm going to go ahead and do fastest and slowest. I'm going to make 2 columns. And I'll say is equal if this D4, if this is equal to the minimum of this column. I'm going to F4 to lock it in. If it's equal to the minimum, then it's the fastest. So we'll say 1, otherwise 0. 1 being a flag that it is indeed the fastest. And boom, right there, there's a 1. Much like we could do that again. I'm going to lock this in. Lock it into the column, that is. So that if we drag it over here, it's still referencing D. Except this time, we don't want the min. If it's equal to the max, being it's the slowest time. And here we have the 1 right there. So our slowest month was May of 2021, and our fastest was February of 2022. All right, that's our problem right there. I hope you were able to get that, and I'll see you in the next exercise.